All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're going to be talking about reducing business risk and maintaining compliance. We're going to give it just a couple more minutes for people to get joined, and then we'll go from there. All right, and as we're getting started, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat feature and make sure that it is directed towards us, and we'll be answering those as we go about our business. TJ, let's get going. All right, so my name is Cliff Harris. I'm a Director of Risk Solutions Sales at ServiceNow. Been doing risk and compliance work for about 25 years now. I absolutely love it.
Absolutely. And my name is TJ Gryzik. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at Clear Skye, and have been in the ServiceNow space for about 10 years prior to them naming releases, if everyone remembers how far back that is. I've been working with identity. Yeah, absolutely. Working with identity the last 5 years, and look forward to talking to you today, Cliff.
Yeah, perfect. So we're just going to jump right into what we offer from ServiceNow from an IRM perspective. So realistically, we have 8 core offerings. Policy is how you draft, create, edit, retire policies, and then have people attest to them or request exceptions from them. Compliance is creating that common control framework, ISO, NIST, HIPAA, FFIEC, you name it, all the alphabet letters, combining into a common control framework and then going out and testing it and then making sure you have your findings. Risk is usually one of 2 extremes. You're either going out performing risk assessments looking to identify risk, or you know your risk and then you're using KRIs or automated factors to actually measure it. Audit is the work we do for internal audit. So white papers, auditable entities, findings, you name it, and that core group together is our IRM suite. We also have vendor risk, which is the due diligence you would do prior to doing work with a vendor. Business continuity is your BIAs, BCMs, disaster recovery plans. Privacy is how you're going to comply with CCPA and some other privacy regulations, making sure that you know where your data is going and how you're actually using it, impact assessments, etc. But then the most interesting category to me is this last box. And this is where we have a lot of better together stories. So it's when you start combining our native integrated risk solutions with other things, both on the platform that ServiceNow has, but then also through partners. And this could be everything from making sure that we tie into HR so that you could see our credentials used properly, are people signing policies as they come on board, acceptable use, things like that, to customer service. How are you actually maintaining as things are going up and down? Does that then tie back to risk, or do you need to use that to trigger a business continuity assessment or process? But then we also have a lot of very unique things being done by third parties. And I think Clear Skye is a perfect example of that.
Absolutely. Here at Clear Skye, we focus on identity governance and administration. What that covers is from the time that you started an organization, getting that baseline access that is required to complete your job, changes or promotions that you may receive through your tenure, or finally during offboarding, making sure that access is revoked. We'll also cover access requests. So if at any point you need additional access, new applications, file share, customer data that you can request, have it approved and provisioned all through the ServiceNow platform. And then, of course, which we'll be talking about today, is really access reviews. So digging into the data, the identity warehouse across the entire enterprise, and looking at who has access to what and ensuring that we're remediating that. And then being able to provide that evidence to our auditors and be able to feed it into IRM in this case, and be able to track that we're staying up and compliant with those types of activities. So.
And that kind of goes to one of the first things that we're going to talk about. And even though we help people gather all the different controls they need to solve for, put them into a common control framework, one of the things that we first get asked about is access reviews. A lot of controls can take place on the platform, and this is why I love Clear Skye. I think you guys are amazing because you actually have the ability to solve this problem. The access reviews are typically time and resource intensive. It's usually a lot of spreadsheets. I'm going to output a log or output a user table with rights, and I'm going to send it to somebody. And you guys do this a lot better in order to make sure that we have both compliance evidence, but then also all of the control families around access control are taken care of here.
Absolutely. No, you hit the nail on the head. So we allow, along with the aggregation of all of that data, to distribute it across the enterprise. Ask the folks who are closest to those individuals whether this access is relevant. Oftentimes that's someone's manager, distributing to managers across different continents and time zones and ensuring that they're looking at only the relevant data that they can answer those questions for. And then once we get those answers back, being able to remediate things automatically and be able to provide a full chain of evidence that this is the review that we initiated. This is the decisions that were made by the business stakeholders. And these were the activities that were completed to ensure that we brought our access landscape back into compliance and all of the activities. How long did it take? And how quickly could we remediate those activities once they've been completed? So by having all of this information in that system of record, in that point of interaction, which ServiceNow is for many of our customers, it really makes that activity a lot easier. So you'll be able to see some of this in the demo as we dig in.
And first question came in when it says the ensure timely, hold up, all right, basically it's asking for the timely manager completion. Do you send automatic notifications on a set schedule, or is that something that you can configure?
Absolutely. I mean, it works just like many of your ITSM workflows today, Flow Designer and SLA escalations. So many of our customers will send a friendly reminder on day one. As the campaign progresses, you'll see ever more aggressive notifications go out saying, hey, by the way, I'm sure you forgot or missed our previous email. Can you complete this review? And if they're still not getting the response that they need, we can escalate to managers through the organizational reporting structure. And we even have customers who will go as far as revoking access if individuals are not completing those activities. So having the power of Flow Designer beyond some of these processes that we're implementing makes it really easy and familiar. If you're deploying ServiceNow today, you're using the same tool set in your IGA program now that you've used in ITSM and other processes on the platform. And all of those metrics are kept track of also. So being able to time and determine the operational efficiency of your processes and decide where you want to move forward to address any concerns you have is all built on that platform.
All right, perfect. I think that answers it. All right.
Oh, there we go.
Let's go to the second problem. Basically, one of the things that we talk about a lot is the first thing you do for compliance is also very similar to the first thing you do for security. And that's get an inventory of all your users, what's being used, how it's being used. And you can find out, do I have PCI data? Do I have PHI? Do I have these different things that I have to protect that then bring in additional controls? But the other thing that it also does is it allows you to have a baseline security to determine, is this normal behavior? Should we be expecting this person to have this access to be able to do this function? And I know that this slide right here talks about how breaches cost enterprises $3 trillion annually. I can't even wrap my head around $3 trillion. But the guest users and the overprivileged users, I know that this is something that every organization faces, and it's both a security problem as well as a compliance problem. And I know you have a unique solution here as well.
No, we really do. And I think this comes back to being built on now, having our application, having IGA built on the ServiceNow platform, because most of our competitors, they have parity in many of the functions, reviews and identity requests and access requests, but they're sitting off on a silo. So how they configure their approvals, or how certain things are defined in the setup of those that may be presenting risk, oftentimes your IRM application doesn't have visibility into that level of detail. So because our configurations, our approvals, our workflows, really what is driving the program itself exists on the platform, it allows us to monitor at a much more granular level than many of those standalone solutions that exist today. Things like indicator templates, which we'll take a look at today, can not only look at the real-time data in the identity warehouse, it can look at how well our processes are being run, and it can look at have we configured approvals correctly, or are there people bypassing the process? And we can compare the real-time data against the request process and be able to pull insights like that. And many customers, will start small. Are you doing reviews? Maybe one example. And over time, you can continue to expand and track more detail of the processes that are most important to try and mitigate some of those risks. Another example I often see is around identities. We all do a great job of offboarding and onboarding our employees, but how are you treating your vendors? How are you treating contractors? And are you, applying those same standards to those individuals? And so being able to track all of that detail around access and compliance, configuration, all on the same platform will hopefully mitigate some of that, those several $1 trillion that people are spending. All right, so sometimes it's good to talk about these things, but it's even better to see them live in the application. So let's dig in. Let's take a look at the ServiceNow and Clear Skye's applications working together. So the first,
just
please.
Really quick, couple things that came in. Both of them are I know the answer to. So yes, this is built on the ServiceNow platform. It is something that is going to have all the same functions, same permissions, same roles. So if you are designing for anything ServiceNow related, then you would be able to come in and do this as well. And then TJ, is this available on the store? And is that how someone's supposed to get it?
That's exactly right. We're certified up to the San Diego release. We get early access as a technology partner to validate and certify the app for every new release. And it's as easy as downloading it into your dev instance, configuring it like you would any other ServiceNow application. There's no third-party components. All of our data, our code, even the infrastructure we use to communicate on-prem is something like the mid server, or is the mid server, not something like. So you could treat it just like any other native app in ServiceNow.
Yeah, that, and because the data is now in ServiceNow, that table could then be used by other applications.
That's a fantastic point. And we'll get into a little bit of the IRM, how we can set up indicators and grab that data through no code, actually, to be able to pull what we'll be talking about today. So, but HR, security operations, CMDB, change management, there's so many applications and processes that exist on the ServiceNow platform that work so well with identity and can benefit from it. And we can benefit from those workflows also.
All right, sounds good.
Awesome. I love the questions. Keep them coming. We have answers for you. So feel free to type that in the chat and we'll get to those as soon as we can. So as you can see, Clear Skye IGA over on the left side, no surprise that it looks like a ServiceNow instance. If you look at the URL up at the top, we are servicenow.com. So it's just a module, an application that exists within the platform. All of our data, all of our configuration exists within this platform also. The first thing that I mentioned is aggregation of data. So oftentimes if you wanted to manage the security of all of your applications, most customers today are going out and they're talking to their SME in Active Directory or AWS or Google, and they have to aggregate all this information into spreadsheets and then work through distribution and asking people these questions across the business. And that may seem feasible if you only have a company that has 100, 200 people. But as you start to scale to thousands or hundreds of thousands, that becomes an impossible task to manage on a quarterly basis, which most compliance requirements require. So here at Clear Skye, we'll aggregate all of that information into an identity warehouse. We'll pull in the accounts and all the attributes related to it. We'll pull in the entitlements, security groups, distribution groups, roles, permissions, depending on the system that we're managing, the names for different types of entitlements, and the memberships, who has access to what within those systems is all being brought into the ServiceNow platform. So what we like to say is that you can see the identity warehouse almost like the CMDB for identity. We're aggregating all that configuration information, all those relationships, and then we're providing that to the business processes that run within the identity governance and administration application. Beyond the applications and downstream systems where we're doing a lot of the provisioning and auditing, we can also connect to your HR, your vendor management, your contractor databases, and also determine what the relationships these individuals have to the organization. In this case, I have our famous demo user, Able Tutor. And if I were to click into Able Tutor, I have the ability to see all of the accounts that he has, what past relationships he's had within the organization. I can see if these accounts are active. Is he logging in with them? Is he resetting his password? And I can determine what environments and downstream applications that they correspond to and make decisions of whether those access points should still be maintained depending on his relationship and current state. It's very common that people will accumulate access over time, especially for folks who've worked at a single organization for a long time, have gotten several promotions. And so we keep track of all of those details within the identity warehouse. And as you can see here, we're also able to aggregate other information within the processes and workflows in ServiceNow. So an example for security incident there. Now, today we're going to focus in on the access reviews. So once we aggregate all of this data into the single identity warehouse, we now have the ability to crowdsource or distribute these reviews to the business stakeholders who understand these individuals, who work with them every day, understand what they're tasked with, and are the most qualified to respond whether they should have that access or not. Now, by no means are we limited to the managers. We can send these to application owners, server owners. Really, the sky's the limit in the distribution of these types of campaigns. So from here in the ServiceNow portal, and I'm coming through the portal, but you can also receive an email notification, which is pretty common. And you'll click on that email and it'll bring you to the review that you need to review. So it's convenient because this is the same place that most of our customers are going to request the access to begin with. You can see up in the top right, I have 2 access reviews assigned to me. I have a ServiceNow access review, and then I have my quarterly access review. I'm just going to go ahead and click in. And from there, I can see the details of who I'm responsible for reviewing. It's worth mentioning all of this is configurable. So the fields that you see, the way that it's displayed, and it's also built on the ServiceNow portal. So if you wanted to create a new widget and add it to the review campaign to provide additional value, the benefits and the skill sets of knowing how to work with the ServiceNow platform will work with our application also because we share that same core platform. From here, I can select one of the individuals that reports to me, maybe my account in this case, TJ or John. If I click into John, you can see the different permissions that this individual has, descriptions about that. We can provide friendly descriptions that speak more to business users, or you can include technical descriptions that will speak to your application owners themselves. Here you can decide whether people should have access or whether access needs to be removed. And then once this review is complete, it's going to go ahead and remediate these points of access automatically and provide and collect all of that evidence. So it's going to reach out to Active Directory or ServiceNow or AWS, and it's going to take away those individuals' access. If we don't have a bidirectional integration, well, we're already sitting on top of your task management solution, so we can route tickets to the responsible groups to have this types of activities cleaned up. And you can track the difference between automated versus manual using things like SLAs and operational metrics and OLAs to be able to determine and try and improve those processes over time, whether through automated activities using things like Integration Hub or Flow Designer to continue to drive down those times to remediation, and over time, hopefully, start to cover additional areas of risk within the organization from a review perspective. Now, the review coordinators themselves can track all of the details of the review from a ServiceNow portal. Here we can see the reviews that are currently going. We can see who has completed theirs and who hasn't. We can see sort of a timeline of the activities and when they've been completed. Are people finishing early on in the review cycle? Is it taking people a long time to complete those activities? And we can also see any actions that are taken. So what access was removed as part of this? And in many cases, you can export this or provide these reports to your auditors so that they can see that things are being done as they should. Now, the real second part of this story is that we don't have to export data anymore. We live on the same platform as our risk management platform lives, IRM. So we can actually just point automated indicators to any of the tables within the ServiceNow platform, aggregate that data, and provide real-time metrics and feedback to our authority documents, to our compliance frameworks to determine if we're in compliant or non-compliant. So let's say, for example, we didn't initiate our review in time. That would become extremely apparent within hours or days rather than having to wait 90 days or wait for an auditor to come and tell us that, hey, you missed this part of it. So it's really critical to have that same data plane and be able to access these tables and this evidence through low code, no code methods. And then, of course, we can track the campaigns overall, anything that's going on, whether we're doing ServiceNow or account reviews, recertification, VPN, whether we're looking at systems like Okta, Active Directory, AWS, SAP, all of it can be tracked on a single dashboard. And if you don't like the dashboard you have here, you can always create a new one. You can configure, modify, change, and add additional details here also. So there's quite a bit of flexibility in how this information can be presented. And there's probably multiple personas within your governance team that care about different areas of risk. And so being able to present the data in the way that's most relevant to your teams is critical. And you get all the same things that you would expect across your entire ServiceNow instance in this case. Now that covers the tactical parts of access reviews. We've now connected to everything. We've now sent out the reviews and we're able to get those responses back. We're able to remediate those activities. But now we're going to start to look at how we can provide that evidence to our auditors. How can we understand our current standing as it relates to the access review components? Before I jump into that though, can I answer any questions related to the reviews themselves?
Yeah, we got a couple. First one up, how many out-of-the-box integrations do you have?
So we have about 16 out-of-the-box integrations. Those are bidirectional connectors that can create accounts, disable accounts, delete accounts, add memberships, remove memberships, and import the security model into our schema. Beyond those out-of-box connectors, we do work with ServiceNow's Integration Hub, and ServiceNow has hundreds of capable spokes that can also be leveraged to build and connect to downstream systems within the system. So I often like to say we stand on the shoulder of giants when it comes to ServiceNow, and as they progress their automation capabilities, your IGA program is going to benefit from that.
All right, next up is what is the, and this is a loaded question, but what is the average deployment time?
Oh, yeah, absolutely loaded question.
Yeah, I don't know if you just want to say maybe like for 10 applications or however you want to do that, because I know that could vary greatly.
No, it definitely does. And to the use cases we're talking about here, if you wanted to connect to your Active Directory, your HR system, and start to perform reviews and be able to get those quarterly reviews done, you're looking at a really quick time to value. I'm talking 30 to 60 days. But IGA is a huge program that you're going to constantly work and evolve towards. So once you start with reviews and we see quick time to value there, you may want to start looking at your lifecycle events like onboarding and offboarding and transfers, or you may want to start building out an access catalog and provide those services to the business. And that will really extend the length of a project. And it depends on complexity and size also. So there are quick time to value and access reviews and compliance, but just knowing that you could have a multi-year project and continuing to build out your identity program at your organization.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Perfect. All right, so all of this data and all of these activities that we're performing, we're getting insights into all of your applications and your security objects and the identity warehouse. We're getting visibility into the compliance activities and responses back and remediation activities and access reviews. And I keep saying it, but it's so important that all of this lives in ServiceNow tables. It all lives over on the left side, your identities, your profiles, your account requests, your access requests, all of your configurations. And why I keep repeating this is because we can leverage this as part of defining things like, indicator templates and reflecting that information back to the processes in the compliance activity. So here, I'm actually looking at the policy and compliance application, the component of IRM, And you can see reflections of how Amazon Web Services is doing, how we're doing against our different authority documents, including ISO, NIST, PCI DDS. And believe it or not, almost every single one of these has a component of identity related to it, whether it's doing reviews or tracking privileged access or making sure that when people are offboarded, their access is revoked. So all of these different identity activities related to those controls themselves. So to be able to get a nice executive dashboard like this, we of course have to map that evidence that we've produced within the Clear Skye application to those different controls. And then as the operations themselves occur, we can keep track of this and understand any potential risks. We could use things like risk management and actually, apply financial impact to the decisions that we're making. So this is that high level overview, and what drives this are these things called indicator templates that ServiceNow has created, which are exceptional. Indicator templates allow you to point to data within the ServiceNow platform. These could be things like change management. They could be things in the CMDB, vulnerability response, security incident response. They could be operational metrics like how long it takes to complete these activities, like offboard an individual. And Clear Skye actually created an indicator template pack to get you started, covering different things like our request processes, separation of duties, which is a pretty big one in Sarbanes-Oxley, and other types of metrics that we can analyze and reflect back on the dashboard that you saw previously. One of those major control objectives that you often see is attestations and certifications. And through these indicator results of pulling that data, we can actually provide the evidence and the results. And we never had to leave the ServiceNow platform for this. Here we can see all of the reviews that have been generated in the last 90 days. I can see several examples here, and I can actually click in to view the live record. So that record that the user completed on the portal is then visible directly from your IRM application, directly tied to the control. So for whatever reason, if you ever find yourself outside of compliance, you would have the evidence, you would have the vehicle that was able to drive those different activities within the system itself. So in this case, we're looking at the review. This may be a request, it may be remediation. You may be looking at how many active contractors you have, and all of this evidence can be collected within these indicator results and attached directly to your compliance framework, and later audited or leveraged as a way to be able to highlight your compliance overview on the dashboards that you see here. So pretty powerful stuff. All right, any questions about the IRM? Cliff, you might be more prepared to answer
take a look at this. I mean, I think that the basis of this is just trying to explain the process. We have the ability to tie particular controls that are associated with an application, a entity, you name it. And then based on the indicator templates that are already there, you then are matching it up with data you're pulling in from those systems. So to be clear, that's all taking place as you're doing your reviews or as you're actually polling those individual applications. Could you just give like a 30-second overview of how that happens or how frequently that happens?
Absolutely. So we usually import data on a nightly basis, as most customers are doing. We'll integrate and pull that in from all your downstream applications and store it locally on the ServiceNow instance. We have some customers that do it up to the hour, but for the most part, people are doing it on a nightly basis. We then define indicators to pull that data on a regular basis. And as we can see by the indicator templates, it really just depends on what type of data we're pulling. For example, things that are high risk, like self-approving or self-provisioning, we're trying to do on a daily basis. But things like reviews that may be running on more like a 90-day or a quarterly schedule, we then reflect that against the collection frequency of the data that we're pulling in that case. And we have the ability to say, well, did you complete all the reviews that needed to be completed? And then we can get even more depth to say, well, how long did it take to complete the remediation activities? How did you validate that those remediation activities were happening? So we have the flexibility through the indicator templates to define the scope of collection. And that's always going to be driven based on the risks of the data that we're collecting and how quickly we need to recognize that we've either missed the mark or need to adjust.
Perfect. I think that answers it.
Perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and switch back to and we looked at some of those authority documents. We looked at some of those controls. Identity is critical critical about across several different authority documents, as you can see here. Sarbanes-Oxley is looking at financial separation of duties. You can't be accounts payable and accounts receivable. PCI is looking at financial data. GDPR is privacy. And we have several best practices frameworks where there are direct identity requirements in these different authority documents. And ServiceNow provides a lot of this framework and the ability to map back to these. So, and I think that's it. So a lot of good content, a lot of good questions. Cliff, thank you so much for spending the time with us. I mean, I really love this Better Together story. I think it shows so much value and just the power of building on the platform and having more and more of these very, powerful applications that you guys continue to release within ServiceNow.
Yeah, other way around. This is the reason why I work it now, is just because of incredible use of technology like this. So I think we got to all the questions. If I missed one, we will make sure to reach out to you. So with that, I think that wraps us up. Thank you so much for the time today, everybody.
Thank you.